Previously on TGN Anime. Unless Goten and Trunks are both in the game and there's this fusion mechanic, we should explore this idea in a future video. That's what we're doing today. Hey guys, my name is Globku, and it seems that I wasn't the only one that had a fusion idea. Reddit user Rock John Axe started this thread on the Dragon Ball FighterZ subreddit with some insight into how it would work. You know, I thought of the fusion mechanic ever since we knew this game was gonna be 3v3. It makes total sense. You're making a team, you pick two characters that they confuse together, but this guy really went a little bit more in depth, and then the community just kind of took it from there with what they would like to see, what they think would work and wouldn't work. So here it is, what the community thinks of a fusion mechanic in Dragon Ball FighterZ. First up, I'd like to open this video by saying there's no consensus. There are many people with reasons to think this is a bad idea, and a lot of people with reasons to think this is an exciting idea. And as we go down the list of topics of how this mechanic would work in the game, we'll also go over the pros and cons, what people are arguing would work and wouldn't work. So basically this would work like a transformation. That's our baseline. We'll go over what's different from a transformation in a little bit, but for now, as the baseline, just think of Frieza going into Golden Frieza using 3 bars of super, and the same would go for, let's say, Gotenks. He seems to be the most popular fusion. But there's an added requirement that is not present in the Frieza transformation. With Gotenks comes the added requirement of having both Trunks and Goten on your 3-man team, and this immediately turns some people off. In the past, we've made a video talking about what to expect in terms of roster size, and I believe we'll be looking at a 24 character roster. A lot of people consider this to be a very small roster, and I understand why. A lot of the fans looking forward to this game are coming from other Dragon Ball games and not necessarily other Arc Systems games. And in the past, Dragon Ball games have only gotten bigger. Their rosters are kind of insane. So having a fusion mechanic that forces you to pick 2 specific characters is already taking character slots, which are very valuable to some of the players. And these players would rather see some other characters rather than forcing 2 characters onto the roster by implementing a fusion mechanic. So let's say you could have Gotenks as a playable character and that would take 1 slot, but if you add a fusion mechanic, then you need to take up 2 slots with Trunks and Goten. Personally, I don't think one thing gets in the way of another. Let's say Vegito, for example. We know Goku and Vegeta are both in the game. If we want to have Vegito, then we need another character slot. But if there's a fusion mechanic, we don't need another character slot. Those character slots are already taken. And I think that's the base argument here, is that Trunks and Goten would not be in the game if they couldn't fuse and go into Gotenks. I will cautiously disagree with that, because in the future, the anime, I believe, will develop these characters a little bit more. The end of Dragon Ball Z still hasn't happened in Dragon Ball Super, so we're gonna see more Trunks and more Goten in the days to come. And you know, maybe the character development will make them into a bit more unique characters. They'll stop being those 2 guys that are always seen together and gain some traits and some abilities that make them even more unique. And if that happens, I will gladly pick Trunks or Goten without feeling like I have to pick both. But that's of course assuming the anime goes into it and develops these characters as I believe they deserve. Alright, but there's still a lot to talk about this mechanic. How many bars of super would it cost? So Rock John Axe suggests 5 bars for the fusion, which both me and Reddit user Blaintopel disagree with. Rock John Axe's proposal makes the fusion a permanent state. Once the characters fuse, they are fused for the rest of the fight. Unlike the Golden Frieza transformation, it would not be a temporary power-up. And maybe that's why 5 bars would sound fair. But most transformations nowadays are actually just temporary in the Dragon Ball anime, so I think fusions should be as well. Plus, unlike transformations, you have a huge downside, which is losing one of your characters. Instead of a team of 3, you suddenly only have a team of 2. Losing a support character is a big deal. It puts you at a disadvantage. And maybe that's why I think that even though it shouldn't be a permanent thing, maybe it should have a duration longer than 25 seconds, which is how long the Golden Frieza is. Getting hot in here. Taking off my shirt. Don't ask how it disappeared. I got hot. Okay. So yeah, I think 3 bars of super is more than fair enough because you're at a huge disadvantage by losing your character. Now there's ways to make up for this huge disadvantage, and one of the ways is maybe by giving these characters a brand new moveset, which I think is a necessity if a fusion mechanic is implemented. Golden Frieza doesn't change Frieza's moveset, it only makes him deal more damage. But both Gotenks and Vegito, they have unique moves in the anime that should be represented in the game if there is a fusion mechanic. And maybe that's a way to make up for losing a support character. However, here's another argument against a fusion mechanic. Gotenks and Vegito, what other fusions would there be? Is it really worth working on a fusion mechanic? Go through all that development work just for 2 characters? Well, I can think of at least 4, but even then I don't know if it's worth it. We did a roster speculation a couple of weeks ago, and taking those characters into consideration, not only do I think we could get Vegito with Goku and Vegeta, and Gotenks with Trunks and Goten, but also Buu with Gohan and Buu with Piccolo. In the anime, Buu absorbs these 2 characters and he gains their outfits. Now the problem with these fusions is the moveset. If the moveset is changing significantly with Gotenks and Vegito, how are we gonna do that with Buu? Because all that happens is Buu gains Piccolo's abilities or Gohan's abilities depending on who he absorbs. However, I think that could still be interesting. If Super Buu keeps some of his melee combos, but gains Gohan's super abilities and special abilities, I think there's space for new interesting juggling opportunities. Depending of course on what the movesets are, we still haven't seen those characters, we don't even know if they're in the game. But I think that's pretty much how it would work. Those are some of the concerns that people have towards a fusion mechanic, but the biggest concern is actually something we haven't even touched on yet, and it makes a lot of sense. Arc Systems has said repeatedly that their main goal is to make a competitive, balanced fighter, and as you've learned throughout this video, even if the fusion mechanic works in a similar way to the Golden Frieza transformation, the requirements and changes in movesets make this a much harder game to balance, and this is why most people don't actually think this would happen. As for the rest of us, we support the implementation of a fusion mechanic because it's a fusion mechanic. We've always loved fusions in Dragon Ball. They're one of the most fun ways to transform characters in Dragon Ball, so of course we would want it in the game. Anyway, which side of the conversation are you on? Are you in favor of fusions being in Dragon Ball FighterZ, or do you think that would be too hard to balance and are actually against them being in the game? Let me know so in the comments down below. To learn more about transformations, you can click this video right here. We crunch the numbers, we tell you exactly what happens when Frieza transforms into Golden Frieza. If you're in the mood for something else, you can also click this video right here. Subscribe if you're new to the channel, like the video if you enjoyed it, and as always, thank you very much for watching. My name is Globku, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!